Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Dan from Kayfabe 6. Rolling solo today without Mikey, unfortunately, but I just had to jump in on Lucha Underground. Last night was just absolutely amazing. I'm marking out so much, even to now, just thinking about some of the spots in that 1 hour of just amazing wrestling. So I'll start from the beginning with Sexy Star versus Pentagon. You know what? It was a pretty interesting match considering the weeks of build-up that we've seen. With Pentagon going after various members of the locker room, trying to hit them with this very interesting, very technical version of an arm breaker where he literally just pulls back on it, somewhat like almost popping the shoulder right out of the socket. Really cool stuff. And I definitely have to show a lot of love here for Sexy Star for the simple fact it's a female wrestler going with the guys. No, like male versus female. It's one of those, sometimes you don't always see it in like bigger promotions, but I gotta give her credit. We're talking like how there's always this whole give divas a chance movement we're really pushing on as we speak online, and then you have someone like Sexy Star wrestling with the men for her opportunity in the ring, and kudos to her. But the biggest, most impressive thing about this wrestler is the fact that she sells everything and takes every punch, every kick, every slam, every splash clean. I'm blown away by how she does really well in the ring. So last night, there was a lot of really great spots, both of them very great wrestlers. Sexy Star pulling off the finish. And it seems like this could be the end of their program together. I gotta admit, I am fairly new to Lucha Underground, but something about Pentagon's character, I'm not sure if it's the whole idea of there being him having a master that's really controlling all this, or even just the fact of just how this guy is in the ring. I'm very into this guy. I'll admit I couldn't help myself and I read the spoiler for the season finale. And let's just say it's going to get really interesting with Pentagon particularly and his character arc. It's building into something really interesting, and I can't wait to see the finale up close and personal. So after the match, there was a little segment with Johnny Mundo working out, being interrupted by El Patron. It's starting to troll him a little bit about not being in the Trios title match, something I'm going to talk about a little bit later. And starts, digging at, Mundo, a.k.a. John Morrison's past, about, never being able to fully pull it off, always being so close. While, giving him that respect of saying, you're part of the reason I decided to come to Lucha Underground. For a very, very awesome response from Johnny Mundo, kind of pulling out a little bit of something outside of wrestling by saying that I'm not some guy you can slap around, referencing how Alberto Del Rio was essentially fired from the WWE, call it what you want, for his interactions with someone in the back. And like I said, it's I definitely had a good laugh on how this happened. And just realistically, I have a lot of high hopes for this program between these two. Both of them are very great wrestlers in the ring, seasoned veterans to some degree. And I can just see this was a nice little taster as to what these two are going to do in the ring and outside of it in promos. So it's going to be something nice for Lucha Underground, something a little bit more different, not centered around, Dario Cueto. Great heel, but This adds a little bit more depth where you don't need that aspect in the storyline or having to have Conan taking lead in the storyline. So I'm really excited for this. And now we're at the Trios Triple Threat Final. So this is a tag team belt that they're going to have. Very similar to Triple A's where it's a 3-person team essentially holding the titles. So what they did the last couple of weeks was qualifier matches, and it led to now being 3 different teams entering in a triple threat match, elimination style, with the winning team and basically winning the Lucha Underground titles. So the 3 teams consisted of Cage, Tejano, and King Cuerno, Angelico, Son of Havoc, and Ivelisse, and followed by Big Rick, Mac, and Killshot. Personally, for me, I love this format of a tag team match, especially when it's multiple teams, only for the fact that it's a lot more realistic. So the way this worked last night was that you had a representative of each team in the ring, making it like a real triple threat match essentially, and that person can only tag as someone from another person from their team, eliminating those weird blind tags and like someone just jumping in, and you're really getting a little bit more exposure to each wrestler, especially while we're Lucha Underground still trying to build their brand. And with that being said, I gotta say I was a little bit disappointed, only for the reason that when I found out the way the format was going to be, I was expecting a lot more spots with all three wrestlers in the ring. I'm not too sure, like, you know what I mean, say, so I'm not going to go into too many details, but I was expecting a little bit more of those three-way dance kind of spots. There wasn't really too many of them. I think with exception to Cage double suplexing Killshot, and I think it was Angelico or Son of Havoc. Warning you now, I'm going to say Angelico or Angelico. Hard to really stick to one. Sorry. But yeah, either way, I would have liked to see a little bit more. But all in all, there were so many great spots in this match. And kudos to every single wrestler in it completely. The one team that really stood out for me, and technically they actually did play the heel role last night, was a team of Tejano, Cage, and King Cuerno. Just their chemistry was just real. It was out there. Like how they isolated other teams, how they gelled together, a lot of double team tactics. Really cool match. And technically, I guess they were the heels because they were the ones to eliminate like the team, like the big favorites between King Puma, Johnny Mundo, and Hernandez, aka Supermex. So, and surprisingly, from that, they were the first team eliminated. A little bit of a weird scenario where Angelico need to Tejano into someone in the front row that we've seen the last couple of weeks, clearly a wrestler, that just went off on Tejano, ended up throwing him back into the ring for Killshot to hit the double foot stomp. So that team was out. Then we were left with Big Mac's team versus Son of Havoc's team. The match continued with a lot more great spots. Angelico pulled off the pinfall after powerbombing Killshot into the corner. And 1, 2, 3, match is done. Only way, if you look at your watch and you look at the time on your YouTube video, being realistic where we all most likely watch this, it didn't seem right. So almost immediately, Dario Cueto, aka like the Vince McMahon of Lucha Underground, comes out and announces to the audience that there's one more team left in the tournament that he selected personally, and this match will be a no DQ. Music plays, and it's the Crew. Anyone that's not familiar with these guys, it's almost like a weird kind of gang, Vatos Locos kind of style of a persona, really, that just took out a lot of the locker room. They've been on a bit of a gap recently, but one of the more notable actions in Lucha Underground was involving them and Big Rig and actually taking a lit cigar, kayfabe of course, and pushing it right into his eye, why Big Rig now wears the eye patch. So with that being said, I would have thought that coming back, like the Crew coming back, and I would have expected them to come back against Big Rig's team considering the previous feud. But you know what, I can let it go for a number of reasons. So the team of Angelico, Son of Havoc, and Ivelisse, they were a team that kind of got slapped together from just it was just I think it was a match between Son of Havoc and Angelico. Didn't really it wasn't a clean finish or something of some sort of a storyline. I know there was a Son of Havoc breaking up with Ivelisse. Either way, Dario Cueto decided to bring these two together, these three wrestlers together, and form a team out of them. So I guess going off that whole true underdog story and them kind of getting screwed over one last time when they think that they pulled off the impossible. So as strange as this sounds, it was a no DQ match, but it was almost like a false count anywhere, as there was very little weapons used and everyone was just scattered throughout the temple. So for the most part, Ivelisse was protected for the most part in the match. Very talented female wrestler. I'm not too sure why she was somewhat limited today, just because I've seen her in, I remember even her in the qualifying match. A lot of great area ability. The fact that WWE had her in the developmental system and did not utilize her, you guys screwed up large on that one. Either way, so what ended up happening was Ivelisse was in the ring with two members of the Crew, with Son of Havoc being taken out on the outside after being slammed into the metal guardrail, and Angelico was just beaten to a pulp on one of the upper balconies. And where you see like the members from the crew about to get their hands on Evilise, all you see is Angelico fly across the temple and take out both members of the crew. The crowd completely popped. I had to save myself from waking up my household from marking out so much, because it was just probably one of my favorite spots I've ever seen in Lucha Underground or in wrestling recently. Like this, it really was something else. Shouldn't be that surprised. I gotta admit, I've been watching him in the last couple of weeks, and he's a very talented wrestler. Completely has me sold immediately. So from there, the match finishes with both Son of Havoc and Angelico landing their respective aerial attacks on maybe on two different members of the crew, while another one's on the outside, and the underdogs have won the trios titles. So the fans went absolutely nuts. This was almost I think it was just under about 20-minute long match. But either way, a lot of great spots. The fans were just chanting, that was awesome, and you deserve it. So it was a really cool way to end the night. So you know what, I gotta talk about the grand scheme of things. You know what, Lucha Underground, say what you will, but the product continues to get better every single week. I don't know how, but it just does. Every single week. I am so hooked on it. And and then even focusing a little bit more on last night, one thing I think going forward I would love to see Killshot actually be independent of a faction and have more of a role, have more involvement, have more matches, because he definitely stood out a lot these last 2 weeks, and some of the spots he had last night were really just something else. The overall character really is something different, and I love it altogether. Obviously, the star of the match was Angelico. Aside from the dive across the temple, the guy is such a great in-ring performer. Rather he's selling or rather he's dishing it out, everything about him is just I'm a huge fan. And then also I have to give a shout out to our boy from Smash Wrestling, Matt Cross, one of our local independents. And it definitely caught me off guard, because I've seen Son of Havoc and I never made the connection to Matt Cross until I started reading into things a little bit more. Not even the beard or the shooting star press, nothing caught on to me. I don't know how it went right over my head. Either way, it's cool to see someone from our local independent scene, at the Six, being in something much bigger and a big scale organization. At Lucha Underground, being an affiliate of AAA Wrestling, it's a huge pat on the back on what's going on in Toronto right now. And as a whole, you know what? The way Lucha Underground is, for those of you who do not know, it's a little bit more like a TV show, in the sense that it's right now they're in their first season. As I mentioned before, there is a season finale that's already been recorded. And despite all this, there's actually a lot of talk that they might not even make it to a second season, which for me would be a really big disappointment. Just because right now it's a WWE dominated world. Not necessarily, I mean more in the bigger scale. Like, we have a lot of great independents, a lot of great number twos, but I don't know. I think Lucha Underground really brings in something different. Like, this style of a wrestling alternative has not always been successful before. Judging from Wrestling Society X, this was one that MTV was involved with years ago. A little bit more of like a hardcore wrestling focus. Had even guys like, I heard recently, I think Seth Rollins was one of the guys in it. I kind of watched it more for seeing guys like Jack Evans, and they had some decent wrestlers to it, but it was a lot more of the hardcore focus. And it just kind of, I don't know, it was a tough sell. Whereas I feel Lucha Underground has somewhat taken that kind of concept and just really ran with it with a lot of different improvements. And by taking the concept and adding more of a lucha libre approach to it, and plus many more. One thing for sure I gotta say is, there's a lot more notable wrestlers from North America, rather it's Mexico and US or even Canada, involved in Lucha Underground. Rather they're mainstream or independent level guys. The matches are very entertaining as a fan.
if you don't even know who the wrestlers are, you're still going to walk away very happy with what you just saw in the ring. The backing from AAA obviously helped a lot because, you know, a lot of these wrestlers, when you look into their profiles, they are active AAA wrestlers that, you know, are being somewhat branched between the two brands. Nothing wrong with that. Watching the show, it's you gotta give love to the commentary team. Matt Stryker, you know, it did a phenomenal job at Wrestle Kingdom 9 recently, and he's paired up here with Vampiro. There are the some odd moments that, you know, when I hear them talk, there's some things that they say that just kind of it just makes me say what to some degree, but like they're both very knowledgeable sources to lead matches, in the sense of they're both in ring performers, a lot of experience, and they really do know professional wrestling. So for the most part, I really love. I love to hear that. I love hearing them. It adds a nice touch to the show. And, you know, finally, it's a very unique environment to somewhat complete a very intriguing and very sellable, marketable product with that Lucha Underground is. So, like, for me personally, though, I gotta say, I would love to see them on, like, Spike TV or more, a better station, essentially. Like, I know Spike TV is pulled out of the wrestling business, but I don't know, someone with a much bigger reach. Because let's face it, this is a great product, but who's really watching it on El Rey? I don't know. Like, maybe call it naive, call it a little bit ignorant because I'm in Canada, I'm not in the States, I don't know how big El Rey is. But I can assume most people watching Lucha Underground are watching it off of YouTube, or I don't know, maybe I shouldn't list off the site so I don't lose my sources to watch Lucha Underground. But either way, most people are watching it online. So I feel like if it is a ratings issue that may lead to them not being picked up for a second season, it's part of it being the network they're on. Like, I don't know. And, you know, if they are picked up for a second season, it's just going to keep getting better. There are rumors of, like, personalities like Rey Mysterio Jr. and Jim Ross being linked to Lucha Underground, which realistically is just going to make the product even better than it already is. So those are my thoughts on Lucha Underground. Check us out on Twitter, you know, at kayfabe6. Constantly talking wrestling, live tweeting throughout various WWE programming. And, you know, like, subscribe, comment below. Let us know what you think about Lucha Underground, and we hope to hear from you soon. Peace.